Welcome back. Welcome back, guys. Yeah, Collins.
Thank you.
We are talking about the senator that said those who wanted electronic transmission of results are Yahoo boys. What's your reaction to that?
I saw that news as well, and at this stage where Nigeria is managing its image, in terms of the acts and of young boys who have taken to internet who have taken to internet fraud as a way of life, and the image that has portrayed for our country, I would have thought that a senator, knowing fully well that this country is doing its best to manage its image and do better, should not open his mouth to label a country in that line. And it's really sad coming from a sitting senator. I did put something down earlier on. I was opportune to be in, so unfortunately I can't give very much details, but I was opportune to be in a gathering of where discussions as to financial inclusion of Nigerians will be expanded. And in order to make that happen, one of the requirements was to have a conversation with the NCC and certain telecommunications companies. I was in that meeting. I was actually in the committee set up by the NSE, Nigerian Stock Exchange, for that purpose. This was a few years ago. And then communications with the NCC at the time suggested that telecommunications coverage in Nigeria was well over 80%. And I'm talking about 3-4 years ago, was well over 80%. So it's a shame that both our senators and the NCC would come out today to tell us that Nigeria is not in a place or in a state well enough to conduct elections that would transmit results via electronic means. It's really sad.
Thank you. Thank you, Collins. Jaja, I'll come down to you. We did talk about that the election of Edo State and Ondo State, has been admitted to be the best election conducted by this administration. So in a state where we meant to be looking forward in consolidating on these two elections, we now have senators, APC senators mainly. Let us be bold and clear to say that APC senators mainly are wanting to draw us back. I did ask if Nigeria populists are strong enough to punish these senators. Don't you see these senators coming back to the Senate come 2023, Jaja?
Well, to be honest, I wish I had a silver ball or a crystal ball to see into the future, but I don't. So it's hard to say. To be honest, it's neither here or there. Some will definitely come. Some had to do it because of what was promised. We read some reports that initially the whole idea of transmission was gaining good traction, and the Senate Minority Leader, in the person of Senate Naya Abaribe, he was really making good inroads, not just between PDP, APC, North and South, was really making solid good inroads. And when the senator in charge, the Senate chairman of the Electoral Act Committee got wind of this development, he notified, certain powers that be, those are the reports, and then they moved in. And little settlement here, little settlement there. That is what we're hearing for the grapevine. This program is not about peddling rumors or gossips. Yeah. But then again, these are things that were reported on the dailies.
Thank you.
And one just has to take it like that. The reality is that some will definitely come back. Some have to do it because of what they have pending on them. Some have court cases, EFCC cases, and in a traditional fashion, the Attorney General can come and give a nullity prosecute, and then that ends the case. Nobody questions it. Why? it's possible that, there are different interests, that it was more of self-preservation rather than national growth and development. I think it was more for some. And I do hope the Nigerian populace rises up and make their voices heard come 2023, particularly to those senators that choose self instead of nation.
Thank you very much. Collins, let me come to you. We thought it was senators from the north that was trying to block the electronic transmission of results. But we saw a lot of senators from the south, that voted no to the electronic transmission of results. Collins, you are from Delta North. Your senator voted no to the electronic transmission of results. Is Delta North that backward that there's no network coverage in Delta North?
I can say for a fact that coverage in Delta North is no less than 99%. And the 1% is just trying to be modest. I know that kind of modesty is wide, but yeah, that's what I think. We have established, since we started having this conversation, that people didn't do this because it was the right thing to do. All of the senators who did this for selfish gains, either for pecuniary gains promised already, or either for an opportunity for them to perpetrate what some people in some quarters, like I said earlier on, are saying is the plan of the APC in next electionary cycle. That said, you and I know for a fact that Delta North is very well covered in terms of telecommunications, and electronic voting would not have been a problem. Neither would electronic transmission of results would have been a problem in Delta State.
Thank you. Let's go to the House of Representatives. Then we dwell so much on the Senate already. In our last conversation, we did talk about where the Speaker promised us that there was nobody trying to expunge the electronic transmission of results from the electoral bill, and on the D-Day where the House of Rep voted, the Speaker decided not to preside over the sitting, handing over his powers to his deputy to perpetuate the acts against Nigerians. What do you have to say about our Speaker, Jaja? Sorry. Let's get Jaja reaction quickly, and then you could follow suit.
It's when it comes to that action, I do know the Right Honorable Femi Bajamila is in the habit of doing that. That's his own style of leadership. I will not deny that. I've observed that most of the time. I found it a bit strange. I did when that happened, but in this case, it's clear why he's doing it. It also calls to question his leadership. The question is a dicey question, it's a political question, and there were a lot of interest. And perhaps he didn't want to offend a block of his supporters, that are keeping his leadership standing in the House of Rep. And that's why he had to give his deputy the yeoman job, who, by the way, made a mess of things, to my own observation and in my own opinion. Maybe that is why he was brought forward. He was crude. He didn't show tact. Very, very brash. If you watch the live coverage, you're just like, what is this? It's okay to disagree without being disagreeable. Politics is all about give and take. But with the way they now concluded, particularly in section 52, the controversial section, that now made it imperative that yes, INEC can transmit, but some subject provided that the NCC and the National Assembly give certain approvals. That was just it left a bitter taste.
Let me come to you.
And to also raise some constitutional challenges in the future, legal and constitutional challenges.
We'll deal with that. Let me come to you, Collins. The PDP and the minority parties staged a walkout on that day in the House of Rep. Do you think that's the right thing to do?
There's neither a yes or no to that question, or a right or wrong answer, or right or wrong label to the actions of the minority party in the House of Rep. Even if they were there, would this particular clause have still flown? No, we don't think so. We saw that happening in the Senate. It would still not have gone through, notwithstanding their votes. And however, I reckon for when there's a battle, face it, there's no point staging a walkout, particularly when staging a walkout will not make as much statement as voting in the process. So from my own personal opinion, I would have said there was no point for doing that. But okay, like I said before I started answering, it's just neither a right or wrong label to that action. It's mostly political.
Okay, as we begin to wind up on this topic, I'm going to ask two of you same question, and you guys have 30 seconds to answer the questions. It will be Jaja first, then you, Collins. INEC is called Independent National Electoral Commission. With the National Assembly wanting to subdue INEC to their control and the NCC control, is INEC still independent? Jaja, 30 seconds, please.
To be honest, with that law, it goes at variance with the Constitution, because ideally, INEC ought to be an independent electoral umpire and provides even as much as guideline as to how it wants to conduct elections, the means by which it wants to conduct elections. So with that piece of legislation, as I tried to allude earlier, it tries to abrogate or tamper with its independence, subjecting it to two players that have pecuniary interests. The first is the NCC. NCC is under the Ministry of Information and digital communication or digital economy, which, by the way, is headed by a terrorist apologist. That's by the way. I just had to say that out. Then you now have, the National Assembly, who are indeed players that want to be referee. It goes beyond. You cannot be a judge in your own case. You cannot preside over the one who would now monitor how you would come in. It just doesn't make any sense.
Thank you, Jaja. Collins, what's your?
Yeah. I'm aligned with Jaja in this. The National Assembly is simply from the back door wanting to monitor how elections will be conducted. Their elections will be conducted. How politicians' elections will be conducted. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. So INEC is basically the face of it. And meanwhile, the persons who will determine how things will run are actually the lawmakers and the politicians. That is at variance with the provisions of the Constitution that sort of guarantees the sanctity and the independence of the INEC. That sort of undermines the powers of the INEC. And there's not much to say to that beyond the fact that the independence of INEC is indeed compromised by that singular provision.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Before we round up our show for today, let's look at other trending issues quickly. Briefly touch trending issues that have been in the polity last week. Jaja, the PDP went to court seeking the removal of the Zamfara state governor. Do you see them having any luck in that?
Well, one of the beauty about democracy is our ability to test certain questions. It will be interesting. In my previous, I think the first chit chat we had about this, I did allude again that I feel that that is an effort in futility, but then it's also very good for our jurisprudence. It's good for our democratic practices. It will be interesting to see what the court will say, because as we have also, agreed on several forums on the same platform, that it's now becoming unbecoming how politicians switch platforms, all in a bid to capture the state, not necessarily standing with an ideology and all that, or maybe using a platform to get their desired goal and now switching to another. You betray the people, you betray the platform, and you definitely betray them democracy. So it will be interesting to see how the outcome will be.
Okay. Collins, one word I can take from what Jaja just said is effort in futility. Do you share same opinion?
I wouldn't say so. So I'll borrow from what he also said. When you test the waters in a democratic setting, anything can happen, really. It was here we saw that the court's ruling on the import of a person who occupies the position of the governor when he was not supposed to be there, and the timelines, that was not necessarily provided for under the laws, but the court did rule on it. So I would not be surprised if the court even rules in favor of PDP in this instance. I'm not saying it's also not possible. It's not impossible for them to rule against PDP, but anything literally can happen. So I would not say it's an exercise in futility. Let's see what the outcome would be.
Still in Zamfara State, Collins, I'll still stay with you a bit. There has been infighting since the governor defected to APC. It has been one fight after the other, within the former Governor Yari's camp and the current governor's camp. Do you see PDP making the same mistake they made in 2019, in 2023? APC, sorry.
Oh, APC. I was going to say, what
APC.
Mistake are you referring to?
So
we never can tell.
Okay, go on.
I assume you're referring to the mistake they made and the ruling of the court that they had not properly fielded.
In 2019, sorry. Yeah.
Yes, that they had not properly fielded a candidate. And
don't forget, the reason for that was because of the infighting.
Of course, I know.
Yeah, and now they are fighting again.
Nobody knows what the outcome of certain things would be. Every political party is having an infighting one or the other in different sectors and in different states of the federation today. And it has always been like that. This is not the first time. Recall that the mistake they made in their case, APC, was in notwithstanding the infighting, they did not now conduct the primaries properly to field the proper candidates, so to speak. And the courts found in favor of PDP that they had not properly fielded the candidate. As such, PDP's candidate was the actual candidate that won the elections. So the infightings can continue as long as when it is time to do something right in terms of the rules and the laws, they do it right. In the midst of their infighting, not a problem. If, however, their infighting takes the better of the day and undermines them doing the right thing, good luck to them as well.
Thank you. As we round up on Zamfara State and look at Anambra State, Jaja, still in same Zamfara State, part of the fight is who is the leader of the party. Who is the leader of the party in Zamfara State, Jaja? Of APC the party?
To be honest, I don't know. But according to their party constitution, or if it's not in their constitution, their political norms, usually it's the person with the highest political office that assume the role of leader. So I would want to say the state governor. But just to also answer the question that you did ask Collins just now, I can wager that if the APC doesn't put its house in order, it will lose Zamfara again. because the forces there are not pushovers. They are stakeholders that have very entrenched interest. The governor does have his own, interest. It's welcome. He's in the platform, but be that as it may, there's no even guarantee that he would win. Being the governor, yes, gives you certain advantages, but the Zamfara politics is very different. It's very dynamic, right? And the Yari and the Marafa faction, they are both one now. I mean, they are very strong forces that have interest come 2023. So it depends on how the governor plays his politics. And then again, it also depends on how PDP reposition itself. It's hard to see.
Sorry, let me butt in quickly. I know I did say we are going to round up on this Zamfara issue. Just where is Senator Yarima? That question is the two of you. I mean, come to think about it, he was the leader of that party. He brought in Yare as a governor because Yare was.
You're talking about Senator Yarima. There's also former governor Shikafi, who now is in APC as well.
Yeah.
So you could see
Senator Yarima. The reason I didn't call Shinkafi is Senator Yarima was the leader. These boys were the governor. The present governor was a commissioner under Senator Yarima. Yare was a commissioner under Senator Yarima, and he went to the House of Rep. So he was their leader. But we don't hear of him anymore. Has he been retired?
I reckon that's the nature of politics. And I think I don't think it would be accurate for us to say he's still not the leader. He's definitely a stakeholder, a strong stakeholder. But, the dynamics and the power play are very, very unpredictable. It all depends on a certain level of, influence you are able to wield per time. It's not permanent. Yes, you're right. We have not been hearing much of him, but it does not mean that his power is in any way lessened. It's just that perhaps maybe I don't know.
Collins, in 2
maybe
seconds,
he has personal matters he's dealing with.
Collins, in 2 seconds, do you know where Senator Yarima is?
I don't know where he is, no. But I'm sure he's still somewhere in Zamfara, doing something at the background. Power is transient, and that's not to say that he still doesn't have power in Zamfara. However, it is also possible he has chosen to sit out on this issue and just watch how things unfold to deal with other issues.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Quickly, let's just look into Anambra State. What is happening in Anambra State, Collins?
Anambra, sorry, I'm jumping in. Anambra is so dynamic now that if you ask me now what the news is today, because if you ask me what it is today, I can tell you something, and then by the time we end this meeting, you realize that was the wrong thing, and that's not the position anymore. It's so dynamic that there's a new thing happening every hour, and So I'll let Jaja answer. Possibly he has an information that I do not have just now as to the present state of Anambra State.
For me, if I may butt in, seasoned political pundits had already foreseen this happening. This whole idea of court orders, counter court orders, put his name today, remove his name tomorrow. The latest that we know is that the court has said that those names should be put. I think, if I'm not wrong, Ugochukwu Uba's name.
Yes.
First it was Valentine, later Ugochukwu. But the way they are going about it, they are giving other parties, e.g. YPP, ADC, yes, and even the APC, a clear road to just breeze through. Because with this level of distraction, it doesn't give either or both the candidates to, bring the party together and go in the field to campaign. This level of infighting, lack of allowing the democratic process to decide the outcome it may be one of the undoings, of ABGA, of PDP, and even of APC. APC, I was still part of my research before this program is that I think there was a court summons, or Andy Uba this their own primaries. So the way they are going about their business it's very difficult to even try and guess who would now clinch the governorship at the end of the day.
Thank you, Jaja.
Yeah,
Collins.
if I would respond to that as well, Jaja. From where I see it, I do not completely. I'm not going to completely heap the blame on APGA and PDP. I seem to think that there is an underlying power somewhere trying to influence things and ensure that these two parties are destabilized prior to the election because of how potentially strong they are and to contend for the position. That's my view.
Okay. I was going to ask you, don't you think that the court is getting too involved in our democratic practice?
To be honest, I hold that
okay,
view.
Sorry, Jaja, that question was actually for Collins.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I don't think so. Are you implying that? So if the answer to that question were to be yes, invariably we're implying that if we approach the courts to decide a matter, the court should recuse itself and say no.
No, Collins, when plaintiffs are going to courts, I mean, we're talking about Anambra State, yeah? As by the last count, there is a court judgment from Jigawa State. Is it Jigawa? No, not Jigawa. What's it called?
I know one was from Abuja.
No, a lot is from Abuja. We're talking about it's Jigawa State. Jigawa State. Yeah, there's a court judgment from Jigawa State. There's a court judgment from Delta State, Uzoro to be precise. I mean, aren't these judges interfering? How can a plaintiff bring a case that is meant to be happening in Anambra to Jigawa? I know you are a legal practitioner. So is the judge
the answer? The answer
to say, you know what, take this case to Anambra State?
So the answer is still no. Jurisdiction-wise, the court is at liberty to. No, let's scratch that. Jurisdiction-wise, let's use the Federal High Court is one court. The jurisdictions we have in the different states are for convenience. What it implies is that I literally can walk up to a court in Zamfara, in Borno, not even Zamfara, in Borno, in the thick of Boko Haram, and say, my lord, I want you to decide this matter for me, even if it is happening in Delta State. As long as one, the Federal High Court has jurisdiction over that matter, the Federal High Court will not refuse jurisdiction. It will hear the matter. It is then left for the Federal High Court to say, oh, can you move this matter back to your state for convenience purposes? But there are certain dynamics in play here. The Federal High Court will not recuse itself and refuse jurisdiction simply because the cause of action did not arise in its locality. There's an argument to that as well. If you say the cause of action did not arise in the locality, is the party not a national party? Party can as well approach any court, or a member of the party can approach any court in the federation, knowing that the Federal High Court is one all over the federation.
Jaja, I mean, your reaction to same question.
To be honest, I would take not necessarily a slightly different view from Collins. It also, most of the problems we now see, the abuses of court processes around the country, stems from two very fundamental issues. One, the Constitution itself, and two, the electoral laws. And to a larger extent, you could even say the actors and the players in the field. Naturally, just as Collins says, the Federal High Court has one jurisdiction. And the fact that it has different, divisions is just for convenience. But these politicians make a smart way of having to do certain dynamics. And it's not new, even in the Anambra case. In the Edo case, it also happened. You tend to see that in different election cycles where people, they try to complicate the whole process, try to use the court as a means to, to capture power instead of going through the proper democratic process of conducting party primaries, going to the field, soliciting for votes and winning. So it's not something that will go away, because truly having to prevent these politicians, who by the way have the right to approach the court to settle any matter that they feel aggrieved about, cannot stop someone, and the court will not refuse on any ground, except if there's a legislation. But even if that legislation were to happen, it must not be such that contradicts the Constitution. So I don't know, you see the thin balance of where we are. That is why, for me, the key is a proper legislation, a progressive legislation or an electoral laws that helps make it difficult for the actors to be using the courts as instruments of trying to win election. Most of these things we are seeing are pre-election matters. They are fundamental because, if, for instance, the party now goes ahead and does the wrong thing, just like the case of Zamfara, it can lose out, or just like the case of Rivers, the person who contested at the primaries may not now turn out to be, the candidate that was voted in. After all, as it stands, people vote for the party and not the people. I guess in question too will still be the Imo State by-election for the Central Imo North, where APC did not have a candidate as at the time it was entering the field. It won and yet did not have a candidate. Those are the bizarre outcomes we tend to see in our own climb. Perhaps as we grow and the electoral process gets a bit more sanitized and stricter, all these pre-election issues would be reduced.
Thank you very much.
I would like to point in here, sorry, in just 2 seconds. I'm sure this is also Jaja's view. Notwithstanding the lapses in our constitutional provisions and the ability of people to approach courts in Nigeria, notwithstanding their divisions, neither of us are here advocating for the abuse of court processes that our colleagues have decided to embark on continuously, particularly when it is near elections period. Absolutely not. But then, until the laws are changed, it is what will continue happening.
Thank you very much. Hopefully those senators being paid billions of naira in our taxpayers' money will do something about it. Our viewers, we have come to the end of our program this evening. We'll be treating more of the Anambra case next week. We'll actually be spending our time dealing with the Anambra case. Unfortunately, we've not been able to actually critically analyze the Anambra situation. Stay tuned and see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.